I'm asking you about how to get class probabilities using a specific type of classifier in Sklearn, a popular machine learning library. We're focusing on the "GaussianProcessClassifier". Think about the different methods available to get predictions, and how those methods might give you class probabilities. This statement says that a special method, "predict_proba", directly gives you the probabilities of each class. Let's see if that's true. This option suggests that another method, "predict", gives class probabilities. I need to know if that is correct. This is an important distinction to make. This option states that you must set a special parameter, "probability equals true", when you create the "GaussianProcessClassifier", to be able to get probabilities. It's telling us that getting probabilities isn't always automatic. We need to figure out whether this condition is necessary. This option asks whether the output of "predict", which just gives you the class labels, not probabilities, can be easily transformed into class probabilities. I think we need to understand how to interpret predictions and what a transformation actually means in this context. Here, we're talking about how we create our model. I'm saying that we need to set the "probability" parameter to "true" when building our classifier to correctly calculate probabilities. Think of this step as setting up the model properly to do its job of estimating probabilities. Here, we're finally using the prediction part of the code. "predict_proba", is where we actually get our class probabilities. I'm mentioning this last because you first need to correctly set up the model before getting predictions. This question asks how to get class probabilities from a Gaussian process classifier in Sklearn. I'll explain the different options. It tests your knowledge of the "predict", and "predict_proba", methods, and the importance of the "probability" parameter. This statement is correct. To get class probabilities, you must set "probability equals true" when you create the Gaussian process classifier model. Without this setting, the "predict_proba" method won't work. Think of it like giving your model the right tools for the job. You wouldn't expect a chef to bake a cake without an oven, would you? This statement is incorrect. The "predict" method only gives you the predicted class labels, like cat or dog. You can't directly change these labels into probabilities. You need "predict_proba" for that. It's like trying to turn apples into oranges. You can't simply change them. This is incorrect. The "predict" method only returns the predicted class labels, not the probabilities. It only tells you the final answer, not the confidence level. This shows how to set the "probability" parameter to "true" when creating the model. It's crucial for enabling the "predict_proba" method to accurately calculate and return class probabilities. Remember this step? This is correct, but only if you've set "probability equals true" during model initialization. "predict_proba" gives you the probabilities for each class. Think of this method as giving you a confidence score for each prediction. I'll explain how to correctly set up the Gaussian process classifier. You must include "probability equals true" when you create your model using Gaussian process classifier. This crucial step ensures that the model calculates class probabilities, which you'll need for tasks like predicting the likelihood of a new data point belonging to each class. Without it, you can't get class probabilities. This method gives you exactly what you want, the class probabilities. After training a Gaussian process classifier, remembering to set "probability equals true", calling "predict_proba", on your new data will return a matrix. Each row represents a data point, and each column shows the probability of that data point belonging to a particular class. These are numbers between 0 and 1, expressing the likelihood of your data belonging to each class. For instance, if you have 3 classes, A, B, C, the probabilities might be 0.2, 0.6, 0.2. This means the model thinks there's a 60% chance the point is class B, a 20% chance it's class A, and a 20% chance it's class C. Predicting these probabilities is essential in many applications. This quiz question tests your knowledge of how to get class probabilities from a Gaussian process classifier model. Remember, it's all about selecting the right functions and setting the appropriate parameters for your machine learning tasks. The core concept here revolves around the Gaussian process classifier, a powerful tool for probabilistic classification. The quiz focuses on whether you know how to use this tool to predict class probabilities. I will teach you to extract meaningful insights from your data. This is the core question. I'm asking you to determine how to get class probabilities, the likelihood of a data point belonging to each class, using the Gaussian process classifier in Sklearn, a popular machine learning library. Let's dive in. To get meaningful class probabilities, you must set the probability parameter to true when you create the Gaussian process classifier model. Think of it like this: you're giving the model permission to calculate probabilities. If you don't, the model can't give you the probabilities, and you'll get an error. I'll show you how to do that. Gaussian process classifier. Probability equals true, Nope. The predict method only gives you the predicted class labels, like cat or dog. There isn't a simple calculation to change those labels into probabilities. You need the predict_proba method for that. You can't just magically transform a label into probability. That would be like trying to convert a picture of a cat into the probability that it is a cat. Not possible. Incorrect. The predict method gives you the predicted class, not the probabilities. It's like getting the final answer on a multiple choice question, not the breakdown of how confident the model is in each choice. It only tells you the best guess asterisk, not the confidence level. That's partially correct. Predict_proba gives you the class probabilities, but only if you set probability equals true when creating the classifier. Think of predict_proba as the more detailed, comprehensive answer. It's what we want. But remember the condition. This is the method that returns the actual class probabilities. Those are the values you are interested in. But, remember, it only works if you've done the setup correctly by including probability equals true when creating your model. This method is your key to getting the probabilities. This method gives you only the class label. That means it gives you only the best guess which is the predicted class, e.g., cat or dog. Not the confidence scores associated with each class. Not very useful for our purpose. I'm focusing on how to get class probabilities from a Gaussian process classifier, a common machine learning tool. It's all about understanding its predict and predict_proba methods. This question checks if you understand how to get class probabilities from a Gaussian process classifier in Sklearn. We'll look at each statement to see which ones are correct. I need to set the probability equals true parameter when creating the Gaussian process classifier model. Otherwise, I won't be able to use the predict_proba method to get probabilities, and will get an error. The predict_proba method gives me the class probabilities. But remember, only if I set probability equals true when I built the model. This is the method I use to get the class probabilities. It's really important to remember to set probability equals true when I'm creating my model. This shows how I create a Gaussian process classifier model and explicitly turn on probability calculation by setting the probability argument to true. The predict method only gives me the predicted class labels, not the probabilities. After I've set up my model with probability equals true, I use the predict_proba method to get what I need. I'm tackling a problem about getting class probabilities from a Gaussian process classifier in Sklearn. It's a common machine learning task, and understanding how to get these probabilities is key. This is the core question. We need to determine which statements correctly describe how to get class probabilities from this specific type of classifier. This statement is about the setup. I need to make sure I set the probability parameter to true when I first create my Gaussian process classifier model. If I don't do this, I won't be able to get the class probabilities later. Think of it like setting up a coffee machine. You need to add the water before you can get coffee. This statement focuses on a specific method. The predict_proba method is how you actually get the probabilities. But, remember, it only works correctly if you set probability equals true earlier, as explained in statement C. It's the button on the coffee machine that dispenses the coffee. I'm checking here for a shortcut. This statement suggests there's an easy way to turn the output of the predict method, which gives class labels, not probabilities, into probabilities. Unfortunately, there isn't. You can't just magically convert class labels to probabilities. It's not a simple mathematical transformation. I'm checking another approach. The predict method is designed only to give you the predicted class labels, not the probabilities. It's like asking for the answer without seeing the calculations. This is the core question. I'm asking you to identify the correct statements about getting class probabilities from a Gaussian process classifier in Sklearn, a popular machine learning library. Think about the methods you use to make predictions and how you get probabilities. This statement is crucial. To get class probabilities, you must set the probability parameter to true when you create the Gaussian process classifier object. It's like flipping a switch. Without it, the ability to calculate probabilities is simply unavailable. If you forget this step, the predict_proba method won't work properly. This is partially true. The predict_proba method is your tool for obtaining class probabilities. However, this method is only effective if the correct probability parameter was set when you initialized the classifier. It's like having a car, but without fuel. You can have all the right parts, but still not work. This statement is incorrect. The predict method only gives you class labels, like cat or dog, not the probabilities. There isn't a magical mathematical formula that converts labels directly into probabilities. You need the predict_proba method for that. This is incorrect. The predict method will give you the predicted class label, the best guess for the classification. It doesn't tell you how confident the model is in that prediction, i.e., the probabilities. If you want the probabilities, you'll need to use a different method.